The whole purpose of this universe and the creation of these lower dimensional levels, we've plunged down into this reality here. And what we say about the grand plan of creation was Lucifer holds the white light of knowledge, and so therefore he's got the knowledge on how to build, how to manifest things into physical being, into reality with that physical knowledge. Like you have a suburb and then you have people that come in and they build the infrastructure, they build the roads and the houses and the sewage and what have you, and then the people move in and occupy that reality, that realm. It's the same. Lucifer with his or her minions, it's genderless, came down into these lower frequencies, and with the help of what's called the seraphim angels, seraphic angels, which are the serpentine energy of angels, started manifesting life. The first forms of life that was manifested in these lower levels of reality were like insect in nature. They were just mechanical beings that just did. They didn't have much thought. They had no thought basically. They're just totally reactive on pretty much a physical, like a chemical reactive type of instinct. And they evolved over time, and some of the races of the insects became consciously aware. And then they moved on. And then after that they thought, well, we need a new form of life. We need these guys work in colonies, not much. They're not really able to think for themselves. So what happened was the next expression of life that was created was the serpent races. And I'm not going to use time frames because time is really of no relevance. I can't give you exact years, it's just not, you don't have numbers big enough. Trillions of years ago. Okay, it was the insects. Billions of years ago was the serpents. That's where I'll live. And the serpents came down, and with that energy of the white light of physical knowledge, they were able to go throughout these lower frequencies of realities, fourth dimension down to the third dimension, and build and create. And they had no one to go up against them, so they totally dominated and ruled, and they become very arrogant, very violent, very evil, because they had no point of reference basically. They were just given free rein, and they were able to do whatever they wanted to do, and that's the way they were. And they know exactly what I'm saying because they're here with me today. And there is, they know this needs to be said. And they were really quite, brutal. And it took a while before God said, right, now I wish to have in this lower void, and that's why it's known as the void, we bring in the energy now of the white light, another set of beings. No one known as the bird tribes. And the serpents started gathering around an area known as Alpha Draconis. And the reason for that is star systems, like planets are beings, you're a being, planetary body is a being, star systems are beings too. Okay, a galaxy is a being. We're all, it's different beings and broken down into different aspects. And so the being that played the role of Alpha Draconis started attracting life, like you as a being attracts certain cultures of bacteria, certain cultures of viruses upon your own body, and they are all life forms, and you are a multicultural universe unto yourself. So it's just a fractal integrator. So what I'm explaining is nothing crazy or, it's just an understanding of a high level of understanding there. And so they started gathering because the energies were right in Alpha Draconis for all these beings together. And then once the bird tribes came in, they started gathering around a place called Lyra, which is specifically around the vegan. That's where the Fédération started a long time ago with its headquarters there. And after they sort of had differences for a very, very long time, down the track, two other beings came into formation, and they were, and I know the names of these beings, they were two star systems, and one of the beings is called Osiris. Osiris is the entire Orion star league. That's who that is. The whole Orion system is one being known as Osiris, and then another system came into play was Pleiades. I don't know the name of that being as yet. And there was another star, third one that came into being was Sirius, and that is the being we know as Isis, or Isis. Now these beings, because they operate on a higher level, they have the ability to manifest into embodiment here in this plane. Okay? That's why they were around at the early times of Egypt. They played a role as well. So they not only have played a role on a level of being a star system, they have also come here and experienced the reality here as well on an individual basis to gather that experience as well. Isis, we call her, on Sirius we know her as Isis, which means she lives. That's what that represents. And that's the energy of the Mother Goddess, the feminine aspect of God. She lives, and she is. And that's a very important thing to know because I'll get to that in a moment. What these serpent races were really all about is their favourite pastime was to genetically create other forms of life, and they did it so they could use these other forms that they would create for their purposes. They were into the energy of control, manipulation, greed, power, ego, on all those sort of attributes, very dominant, aggressive sort of attributes. The bird tribes came into the fray and they hung around the Pleiades star system and they started playing genetically as well, but their angle on creating these genetic forms was slightly different. Their intent was more vanity, beauty, good health, longevity, those sort of attributes. While there were some Pleiadians that created genetic embodiments for slavery purposes, because there was overlapping that occurred, of course. It's not like you draw a line and one is only that way, one is only that way. There is overlapping that occurs. The overwhelming majority did that for those purposes, okay? It was definitely for the beauty and the longevity and all that. And so what God had reached at a certain point in creation, and he had, in Orion, the serpents found themselves being attracted to that star system because what happens is depending on your molecular structure depends on the rate of the spin of your atom, okay? The energies involved in that star system were just right for the serpent races to create their ultimate genetic embodiment. So the genetic stream that comes out of Orion, the genetic stream in Orion is superior to any other genetic stream in creation for holding the embodiment of the white light of Lucifer, of knowledge. That is the ultimate embodiment for holding that charge of light. Okay? For the bird tribes, they went to the Pleiades. And in there, they found the energies were perfect for creating the physical embodiment which best held and maintained and expressed the charge of the white light of conditional love. There was perfect energies there for creating that embodiment. Okay? And then whilst that was going on, a third nation was coming into the fray, and that was Sirius. And the energies of Sirius are balanced energies. Isis, and the energies of Sirius is pretty much the Christ centre of, it's got a lot of the energy of the Christ in there, but it also holds the energy of the Mother Goddess. So the two main colours of Sirius, as far as spiritual energy go, is gold and silver. Silver is the light of the Mother, and the Christ is the balanced energy, but it has a more masculine flavour to it. But they all serve different purposes. What these So God had now achieved a certain level of existence. I've created now on one hand the embodiment which best held the charge of the white light of knowledge, and on the other side of the ledger the embodiment which best held the charge of the white light of conditional love. Now it's time to unite these two together, and with the unification of that, bringing these two parties together, because they are two embodiments that were at the opposite ends of the spectrum. Total other ends, opposite ends of the polarity, extreme ends. So by bringing those two together, it began with a war, which was known as the Orion Wars, and they raged for over 1 million years. It was really horrible, painful time, but it was a process we were required to go through. And Sirius was, because it had such a high energy of balance and the mother energy, it started attracting to it as a star nation highly evolved spiritual beings. Doesn't matter what race they came from, just they were attracted to that place. The energies felt really comfortable for them to be there. A lot of lion beings live in Sirius. There is lion beings out there, yes. What was going on was the two tribes came together and they had the wars, and then the energy of Sirius started attracting these highly spiritually evolved beings. And a lot of birds went there too that were highly evolved, and some serpents too that were evolving spiritually and weren't into that energy of war so much. They understood that it was no good. And what happened was Sirius then started favouring the birds, the conditional love side of life, for a very short time. And Orion went to war, the three serpent queens, under the guidance of the three serpent queens of Orion, went to war against the two bird tribes of Sirius and Pleiades. And it was a very difficult time. You see, the serpents mastered physicality. They knew technology and they had all the hardware. They were the masters of physicality, and you've got to give them respect where it's due. And so they said to us, it got to the point in the war, they said, you either, to us as Sirius, either surrender or we'll annihilate you. That's where it got to. And the king of Sirius, King An, who was a very spiritual being and always working with, in line with the spiritual hierarchy, was told by the beings in the higher plane that if you surrender, and it will serve the right purpose down the track. And so he did. He had faith in that. He did. He surrendered. And Sirius now serves in a sort of way under the guidance of Orion in the Federation in a kind of a way, certain areas of life. And the wars then subsided, because what happened is by doing that they were able to inject into the serpent races, and we're talking about the cream of the crop of the serpent races, the ones that's sort of the top, the pinnacle, okay? Into that was an injection of Christ's energy by doing that. It was a very, sometimes folks, in order to win a war, the whole war, the ultimate war, you've got to lose a battle. That's the idea. Okay? You've got to let go of the ego, and sometimes you've just got to lose a battle in the long run to win the main war. Okay? And that's what An did, and injected that energy, and a lot of the lion beings started hanging out because they're very wise beings, and that's why I have a lot of that energy around, and that's why the Sphinx is where it is. That's why there's a lot of establishments here on the planet that use the lion as their emblem. Because the people at the top, right at the very top, they know exactly what I'm saying. There's no mystery. It's no secret. It's just the masses are kept in ignorance, that's all. And so the lion beings are very important beings. They travel throughout our universe and teach great wisdom to a lot of races. They have the ability to know how to harness power. Power comes in many forms, and ego and greed and all those sort of things, and control, and it's important to learn how to harness that power and redirect it and reuse it in the right manner, in an effective manner. There was a particular being known as the Winged Dragon of Ra. This guy was the leader of the armed forces of Orion, and still is. He's the son of one of the queens of Orion, and was appointed that job and was really good at it, boy. He then started hanging out, after Sirius surrendered, started hanging out with line beings from Sirius, because he was a power man and they were power beings, and they kind of started hanging out together. And then through a period of time, his relationship with these beings, they taught him great wisdom and said, hey, you know, what do you think it's like to be on the receiving end of your policies, of your decision making? You know, what you term as peace is really control, like I read to you that philosophy before. And it's the same mindset, it's no different, right? And they taught him that you're out there imposing your grand force. We're talking about huge armadas of planetary-sized ships and everything, which just overwhelmed everybody, and saying that they must live under your rules and your regulations, and that's what you deem as peace. You might have peace for a little while, but eventually those people are going to rebel, because they can only put up with that suppression for so long. Okay, it's not freedom, it's just control. And he learned that through them, and he started turning back towards the Creator, and he was, I must say now, he is one of the most important beings in all of creation, and soon on this planet he will be honoured for the being that he is. So will this guy, Lucifer, okay? We've got to get out of this one-eyed perspective that there's only one good side, alright? You can understand that these beings will be honoured for the roles that they've played soon on this planet. Now, he turned around and said to the queens one day, when they went up and wanted him to attack a star nation, he said, no, I'm not going to do it. And they just went crazy, you know, how dare you? Because, you know, they're used to, you know, you do what we'll say. And their philosophies are, their cultural philosophies were, we were here first, we will step on the bird tribes and all these humans, on these beings of light. We were here first, we own this place, we have the right to do whatever we want with them. We will step on them and do whatever we want with them, that is our God-given right. Okay? Or their term of God. Okay? And that's their philosophies that they operate under.